Well, hey, Jono, how are you?
G'day, Ross. G'day, dear viewers. A very exciting program for you today. Ross and Jono are with you once again. And as you may recall, last week, Ross, we were saying, hey, you know what? We should revisit this and revisit that in the text of the Moses Scroll. We're going to do some subjects. You had in mind that we might have a look at where the scroll shows up in the book of Numbers, and that was going to be a fascinating program. Then something happened.
That's right.
Something happened by which we said, well, we've got to stop. We've got to talk about this. And all of your good work that you've been doing there in the state of Louisiana has finally paid off, or so we hope. What is going on in the news there in your home state?
Well, look, Jono, I think it's not just work that I've been doing, but you've been to the United States 2 times, right? And you've only been to one state in the United States, and it's Louisiana.
That's right.
So guess what just happened this week? We couldn't do anything but this. This week, the governor, we have a new governor who signed into law House Bill number 71, and this is what it is. Among other things, it requires. In fact, let me just read you the paragraph that says what this thing is. Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me look. No later, Jono. By the way, I put a link in the description. People can get all the legalese, the whole process, from the time it was introduced by 30 representatives and 2 state senators until it finally was signed by the governor. Here it is. Later.
While you're doing that, I'm going to drink my cup of tea from my Louisianan cup. You go ahead.
Okay, that's an excellent cup to drink from. No later than January 1st, 2025, each public school governing authority shall, Jono, display the 10 commandments in each classroom, in each school, under its jurisdiction. The nature of the display shall be determined by each governing authority with a minimum requirement that the 10 commandments shall be displayed on a poster or frame document that is at least 11 inches by 14 inches. The text of the 10 commandments shall be the central focus of the poster or frame document and shall be printed in a large, easy, readable font. Now, we're going to talk about this today, but we're going to also entertain quite a bit that is following on the heels of that. Like you can imagine, I jokingly told someone today, but I guess it's a joke. It's like every demon from Hades or the pit has come up to fight this fight. It would be easier, I think, Jono, to get a 6'4" drag queen wearing a halter top and Daisy Dukes in fishnet stockings and stiletto heels to read Hansel and Gretel to a kindergarten class than to post on the wall an 11 by 14.
This is the world that we live in. So the world we live in says, hey, not only should we have drag queens come to the public library or the classroom and read to the kids, that's a thing that the kids are demanding of their parents. My goodness, why can't we go to Disneyland, number one? And number two, why can't I have a drag queen read me the story? What's wrong with you, parents? What's wrong with you, teacher? These are the only 2 things that we want. And you have to make it happen. Not only should it happen, but it's a public good. It's a thing that should happen. It's like an indoctrination event in your childhood that you must have a drag queen read to you a story, damn it.
That's right.
So there's that. But if you want to display a square foot of the 10 Commandments on the wall, what happens, Ross?
Oh, my goodness. Well, let me tell you, several things have happened. Every organization, now there's quite a bit going on, but the ACLU, there are various of these groups against religion. They're saying, no, this is a violation. You're hurting people by pushing this because we have, Jono, in the United States, we have a constitution, and some people who, they may not hate religion, they may not hate God, they may not hate the 10 Commandments, they might be Christians, they might be practicing the Judeo-Christian tradition, but even some of these people say, look, there's reasons that we don't want this in the schools. And we're going to talk about some of that. Like, for instance, I thought about this. First of all, is it a victory? Is it really a victory for religious freedom to put the 10 Commandments in the schools and mandate it, is that really a victory? Or is it going to open the door, let's say, for demands for inclusion of other religious texts? Like, for instance, is it going to be that somebody says, well, since you have the 10 commandments on your wall there in the cafeteria, maybe we should put the 5 pillars of Islam, or some other document. So
Sure.
those are the questions that we have to get into, Jono. And you're a freedom-loving man. You love the 10 Commandments. You know quite a bit about American politics, so we're going to talk about all this stuff.
We're going to talk about all this stuff. Now, of course, just to revisit what I just said, of course, no child says, I want a no child is pestering their parents or teachers saying, I need a drag queen story hour. It's something that the teachers and woke parents, if you like, will cram down upon the kids. Why? Because there is no such thing as secularism, really. There's only once you extract religion from a society, it is filled with some other sort of religious expression,
ideologies,
and that religious expression, ideologies, and those ideologies do become religious. They have their own flags, they have their own indoctrinations, they have their own holy days, and so on and so forth. And we're seeing that now, because what has happened in recent decades is an extraction of religion from the public square, and particularly the display of the 10 Commandments. What there is a recognition of, Ross, is that the 10 Commandments is, and I think your governor said as much, that it is the cornerstone, the foundation of law in Western countries, and particularly in the States. So in as much as it is a historic document that needs to be displayed, and this is what he wants to reclaim. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have to imagine what's going on in the state of Louisiana, and the fact that it's really peaking on Twitter, on X. I don't know if it's trending right now, but it certainly has the attention of every pundit. You have lots of people for, lots of people against. Is this the right thing to do? But the question becomes, I guess one of the main things I want to get into, first of all, is it really a violation? I mean, you would think that whoever's putting this bill together, by the way, I know one of the senators, Valerie Hodges, who pushed and is one of the sponsors of this bill that passed, and I just hadn't had a chance to talk to her yet. But I mean, I talked to her. Anything that has to do with Israel, she's invited me to the governor's mansion, and really a great, now she's very conservative Christian, but she loves the Bible. She's pro-Israel. She's everything, well, not everything we are, but some of the same things we are, right? But anyway,
of course.
So one of the questions that I have going into this is this a violation of separation of church and state?
Separation of church and state.
Do you have that in Australia, by the way? Do you have anything like that?
Well, we do have this kind of nonsense, and I remember that. Now I haven't revisited this for a while, but I do know that there was a discussion about taking the Lord's Prayer, in the New Testament, the Lord's Prayer out of the rooms of politics, and because they would open Parliament with the Lord's Prayer, and then they said, well, why are we doing this? There should be a separation of church and state. I think they actually succeeded in taking that out. I'll have to revisit that.
Right.
But it is there is an idea of the separation of church and state. And it's developed literally over centuries, past centuries in philosophical circles. But it made its way into, of course, the US development of its political systems. And when it did so, Ross, and you probably have more information on this than I do, but when it did so, what it was aiming for, but people have to be reminded that the founding fathers of the US were very religious, deeply religious, and incredibly educated in these documents, very religious people. And what they wanted to achieve was a country in which the federal government could not cram down upon its citizens and say, we will have a religion, we do have a religion, and here is the state-approved or the federal government-approved religion. So if they were to say, the federal government was to say, look, you can only have Lutheranism, or you can only have the approved religion is Catholicism, or it's It's whatever it might be, whatever the institution, that's the one, and you will conform. That is the idea behind separation of church and state, that the federal government will not be able to dictate to the people, this is the approved brand, this is the approved institution.
Now, you understand that. So some people, anytime something religious comes up and it's associated with politics, for instance, Governor Jeff Landry signing a bill that says, thou shalt, is the way I called this YouTube video, thou shalt display the 10 Commandments in every public school, right? And so some people are saying, hey, you can't do that because we have, little Muslim children and little Buddhist children and little atheist children, and you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
But as Landry points out, this is a historical document, a document on which the entire nation was founded, right? Okay, so that's fine, and he has a place to stand there. But the other thing, of course, is that he's not signing it in as a federal cram down. He's signing it in as a state. And this has been done on in numerous occasions in American history, where states actually do choose an approved institution as their representative religion, right? Mm-hmm. Well, he's not even doing that. All he's doing is he's saying this document is the founding document of law and religion in America, and we want to keep that alive and make it known to the children and have it on the walls in every single classroom. Great idea. I think I'm all for it.
You're
I'm
for it.
So
if you had to vote, you would say absolutely put it up there. We'll talk about which version in a minute, but let me throw.
Yeah, this is the next thing.
If I can jump in, John, I wanted to say one thing. They didn't just put this bill together and kind of not expect for the ACLU and the foundations for religion-hating peoples and all of those kind of different foundations. They knew they were coming. They're already, as soon as the ink wasn't even dry on the paper, and various groups stood up and said, we are going to sue Louisiana, you backwards bunch of bumpkins. We're going to sue you, and we're going to beat you down so badly that you're going to be scared to say 10 Commandments. This is what they want to do. And other states have tried this, and just because of the heaviness of the lawsuits and the threats and the beatings that they took, they just gave up. So we'll have to see. Go ahead.
We will see, and I hope that Landry does succeed. Some of the objections, to be fair, Ross, some of the objections are valid, and those objections are concerns that it will drag or push children into a particular direction of a particular religion. And what they're looking at is saying these institutions have all this baggage and all these demands, all these antiquated things that, and so on and so forth, that you and I have objected to in the past.
Yeah.
And we can get into some of that. But as a whole, the 10 Commandments is, as we know, a system of blessing. If you will observe them, it is a divine system of blessing. It has an incentive structure, at least in the 10 Commandments it does.
Yeah.
And this is now is the time to really hammer that home. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say quickly just some of the things that are in this House Bill 71. Look, I really encourage our viewers to get in the links. Not now because we're talking now and it would be rude. But later, download this document, read it in your private time,
and read it,
and get a full power of what this thing is saying. So as you pointed out, it's not just to say, hey, the 10 Commandments are a divine revelation from God to Moses, to the children of Israel, to those assembled at the mountain on the day of assembly. That's not it. It's here's some of the things that they use as arguments to suggest that this doesn't quite fit the whole violation of church and state thing. And they appeal to various cases. So here, quick rundown. One of the things that's mentioned they list them. Number one is 2005. The Supreme Court of the United States recognized that it is permissible to display the 10 Commandments on government property in Van Orden versus Perry. Then it gives the statute number, the legal case. Number two, in 2006, legislature enacted a certain regular session of the legislature, posting in courthouses, that the Ten Commandments and other historically significant documents could be posted in courthouses and other public buildings to address, quote, a need to educate and inform the public as to the history and background of America and Louisiana law. Number 3, in 2019, Supreme Court of the United States says, recognized that the Ten Commandments, quote, Jono, have historical significance as one of the foundations of our legal system. And that the court also ruled that the displaying of the Ten Commandments on public property may have multiple purposes, quote, such as historical significance and represent a common cultural heritage. And it goes on and it lists various other cases that have come. And then the sponsors of the bill, the writers of the bill, also included historical reasons to prove in the writing of this document that the foundation of our country, this was a very important thing, that various textbooks had the Ten Commandments and so forth. Now, the enlightened group, wink, wink, the group that doesn't want the Ten Commandments, they would say, yes, but we've come so far. We don't need the Ten Commandments anymore. And they're saying that this old, antiquated system of jurisprudence should not be in the faces of our children. Would rather have the Queen doing the story hour.
Right. And now listen, at the same time, it has to be said that at the same time that we have seen the extraction of the Ten Commandments from classrooms, from courthouses, from public squares and halls and so on and so forth, we've also seen the degradation of society rapidly. In real time, we've been watching this in so many facets of society. We've just seen collapse the American way of life or the Western way of life.
Yeah.
It's happening here in Australia. It's happening in the UK. It's happening all over the place where the 10 words once were the glue of society. It's now just being neglected and ignored, as I said, extracted from the public square, and we can see the results of that, or we can speculate on the results of that, right?
Yeah.
Now, the next question, Ross, is one other objection that...
Now, wait. Before are you going to forget? Yeah. The only thing I want to do is get one little bit more on separation of church and state. Are we leaving that, or can we? Ahead. Let me just say one more
keep
thing.
Going if you want to do that, yeah, go ahead.
Everybody says this, Jono. I'm an American, and I hear it all the time. If it is anything, if it tastes like, smells like, looks like, acts like, it's something to do with religion, those that are against religion in all forms are shunning, and they always use separation of church and state. So is it a violation of separation of church and state, which is the first clause in the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, dealing with religious freedom, and it has to do with any laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So I was curious because I didn't recall from my civics class as a young man, where does that phrase, separation of church and state, come from? And I just want to touch this, and then we can jump to the next. In English...
I was going to say...
go ahead.
I was going to say that it came from John Locke, but I don't think it is John Locke. I think he expands on the idea of this, but then it's used specifically by one of your early politicians. Who is this?
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson. So it's the exact term. I love Thomas Jefferson. The exact term is an offshoot of the phrase, quote, wall of separation between church and state. Now, this is a quote from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Association in 1802. And he says in that letter, he's talking in this letter to the Danbury Baptist Association, he's talking about the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. Here's what he writes. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. My God, man, I love Thomas Jefferson. That is so eloquent, so precise. And what people do, though, is he's got a very clear thing in mind, and constitutional scholars, which I am not, have debated this on hundreds and hundreds of cases. Question is, will Louisiana's action of the governor Landry, will it be considered and shot down in the courts as a violation or not? That was all I wanted to add on that, Jono. We're going to talk more about this in the after.
I'm really glad that I'm glad that you quoted Jefferson. Clearly, what he's not saying is all government needs to extract all religious content from anything that it does. Yeah. He's not saying that. What he's saying is we're protecting your right to choose your denomination, your expression of religion, so on and so forth. And at the time, it has to be acknowledged that the context, the religious context in which he is writing, is within the religion of the Ten Commandments, or at least to be more specific, the Christian religion of the Ten Commandments. And that's fine. But the acknowledgement is everybody, Jew and Christian alike, both say, the cornerstone of our faith is the 10 words. Jesus said as much.
Yeah.
And this is the reason for its display. Well and good. Is it stepping on the toes, this decision stepping on the toes of that? No, not at all. Not at all, because it doesn't infringe upon free speech. It's entirely voluntary. It's just on the wall. It doesn't tell you that you have to belong to any particular denomination or institution. It doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It's there to remind you that this is a major founding, if not the major founding document upon which this great nation is based. What it doesn't do is, which the Moses Scroll does do, is give you an incentive structure, and perhaps we can revisit that a little bit later. But before we do that, Ross, I'll tell you what the Australian, the ABC here, the Australian news outlet, wrote an article on this. And within that article, it said the American Civil Liberties Union, the American United for Separation of Church and State, and the Freedom From Religious Foundation argue the law prevents students from getting an equal education and will keep students who have different beliefs from feeling safe at school. I mean, as if a poster of the Ten Commandments is going to make one feel unsafe.
Oh, I know.
Utterly ridiculous. Yeah. The groups said in a joint statement. Now, they also said this, quote, even among, and this is the next, this is what I'd like to get into, quote, even among those who may believe in some version, Ross, in some version of the Ten Commandments, the particular text that they adhere to can differ by religious denomination or tradition.
Yep.
Well, quite right.
That's right.
Quite right.
That's right.
And that's fair. Now, we did a whole series on that. We did a whole series on that in preparation of this very thing, Ross.
Yeah.
And that series had a look at all the ancient accounts of the 10 words,
right?
Whether it was Deuteronomy or Exodus, because they're different. Whether it was Leviticus chapter 19, which is also an attempt to recall the 10 words, whether it is the Samaritan Pentateuch or the, what else did we have?
The All Souls Deuteronomy, the
Nash Papyrus.
The Shapira manuscript.
We did manuscript.
That was a good series. It's almost as if we've been, for such a time as this, Jono, it's almost like everything, and this just pops up. Our listeners, our viewers are so ready for this. You know what they're saying? Which version? They're asking the tough questions. They're not, they're not like the uninformed, No,
that's right. Now, listen, the last, if I remember correctly, I think the last show that we did on that series had to do with a particular version of the 10 words that is commonly used in the States. Do you recall what that was called?
I do. Not only that, I remember we got in trouble because you got in trouble. I did. I got in trouble because there was a graphic. There was a Texas, the Fraternal Order of the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken, in my notes at least, I have the Texas Bill 1515. And it was a bill that that put forward, similar to what we're dealing with in Louisiana, that this would be in public places or something.
Yeah.
And it was sort of an, can I say, eclectic or an abbreviated form of the 10 words. But I got in trouble because it had like an all-seeing eye, and someone said, "Oh, this is some kind of demonic."
Got a few decorations about it. That's it.
But we talked about this, and we said, because we're both religious, independent scholars, we do a lot of research on the 10 words and so forth, and some might say, well, is it the Jewish version? Is it the Christian version? Is it the Protestant version or the Catholic version or the Lutheran version? Or is it Exodus? Is it Deuteronomy? We knew that there are multiple versions, even within the biblical text. So our takeaway was the text, just bear with, not you, Jonah, but the audience, the text was not so bad if you're looking for a single document to kind of pull together all of these various versions. I think that's fair. And
I would agree with that.
You noticed, I didn't notice it. I knew something because in this bill, House Bill 71, it says, here is the version that thou shalt put on the walls.
Right. Now let me ask you about that before we get any further into this.
Yeah.
Where it says, you just said, here is the version that that thou shalt put on the wall. Is it actually, or this is the version that we would prefer to have on the wall, or can you have, if you choose, the version of Deuteronomy? Can you have, if you choose, the version from Exodus, or can you choose the version from the Moses Scroll, Ross, or must it be this particular one?
Well, as far as it's written here in House Bill 71, I happen to know one of the people that put this forward. Sounds like I need to give Senator Hodges and the governor a copy of my book. But anyway, this says, the bill says in B2, section B2, page 3, the text shall read as follows. So it specifies not only that the 10 Commandments shall be put on the walls of classrooms from, I guess, pre-K to college, but in addition, it is a specific version of the 10 words. Now, a lot of our viewers, our regular viewers, know that there are several versions. Some who might be just joining us today may not know that there's more than one version. So just quickly, let me just say, we mentioned some of them, but if you have nothing but a King James Bible or an NIV or whatever the case may be, and you say, look, I don't care about that Nash Papyrus or the Moses Scroll, whatever else you said, Ross, I don't have that in my Bible. Well, read Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5 side by side, and you will see that they're not exact. So the question becomes, and has been, if you're going to display the 10 words, which version do you use if you stick with only the Bible? And one of our friends and longtime viewers already posted a comment I saw earlier in the week, and they said, is it going to be the Jewish version, the Christian version? It's a complex question, right? So
it's a complex question,
it says, Jono, to answer your question, it does call for a specific version of the 10 words, but I happen to have read the whole process from the time this bill was proposed until it was signed by the governor, and it has several revisions. And so quite possibly...
Oh, I read some of those, you sent that to me. Yeah.
So anyway...
so maybe there's room for that. I would love to see that, because what would be grand, in my mind, I think it would just be absolutely, this is exactly the time for it, is to be able to say to the governor and say to classrooms, we'll pay for the frame, we'll pay for the poster, we'll even give you the incentive structure that has eluded us for the last 3,000 years, and that is the system of blessings that correlate to each of the 10 words. We'll give you a copy of the 10 words that actually has 10 commandments, 10 words rather than 9.
That's right.
All right? For people who aren't up on this sort of stuff, I'm sure Seth will put a link of that series that we did in the comments.
That's right.
But getting back to this, so what was the last program that we did in that series, and what is this version that they're proposing be displayed?
The last one that we did, I don't have the title of the class pulled up, but again, I'll post that link. But it was about the Fraternal Order of the Eagles version of the 10 words.
If I remember correctly, Ross, this particular version is like the kind of version that you use in like the Boy Scouts might use, or would appear on the courtrooms or the halls and all this. So this is kind of sort of an abridged, pulled together, but it's one that concurs with, I think, the Exodus version.
It does.
Of the Ten Commandments.
I mean, it does.
And why does it do that? Go ahead.
Well, it doesn't actually correlate word for word because, as you said, it's an abbreviated, truncated version of, for instance, I'm just going to read the opening if I can and point out a difference between this version, the one that's the Fraternal Order of the Eagles, also
Go
this
ahead.
one. So I am the Lord your God, but then it leaves out, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make to yourself any graven image. But then it leaves out, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or the earth beneath, or the water under the earth, or bow down to them and serve, So it just has, I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make to yourself any graven images. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, and so forth and so on. So it is an abbreviated. Yep.
Can I, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, just remind me, how does this version deal with the 9 into 10? Does it split the first one into 2, or does it split the last one into 2?
It's interesting you bring that up. What I noticed is they're not listed numbered. So it doesn't say 1, 2, 3. So what might happen to a student is little Johnny is in the lunchroom and he's looking up, gazing because his parents are scoffing atheists, and he feels a draw from God to the 10 Commandments poster over the milk tray, and he sees on the list, and he's trying to memorize them every day. He goes into the lunchroom, he sits with his little pals, and he just reads, he takes it in, wishing that his parents weren't stupid atheists. But he's reading from the sign, but he's thinking, why do they call them the 10 Commandments? Because he's counting them, and he gets a little confused.
He's counting them.
So some of the detractors of this bill and the whole enterprise of this thing have said the kids are going to be confused. A lot of times these people want to point out that this is confusing as all get out, which I think would cause them, little child, to go home and type in on Google, and maybe they'll find our program and they'll have the problem solved for them. So it could lead them to the truth. So there are no numbers. All of that to say there are no numbers on the list.
Okay. All right. So we don't know where specifically. I mean, does it separate by space or anything like that?
It does. I think you could almost look at it, and it's like line 1, or actually line 22 is, I am the Lord your God, thy God. Next line, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Next line, thou shalt not make to thyself any graven image. Now, here's what I don't know. This is the verbiage that they mandate. What I don't know is in these here's what it says, shall be printed, Jono, in a large, easily readable font. So I don't know if they're going to break them down this way, or let's say that a publication, a society to publish these, might give them to the local schools in their neighborhood numbered. I mean, it could. There's nothing that says they can't be numbered. But that brings up another point, by the way. This bill would have gotten more scrutiny if you were requiring the public schools to maybe use public money for these. But there is a clause in here that says that they're not doing that. So I think that's part of the thing they're trying to head off, because you can imagine.
And I actually love that.
I do
love
too.
that, Ross, because every single copy of the 10 words will be there because somebody donated it to the classroom, not just to the school, but to the classroom.
Yeah.
Every classroom will have this, and everybody who believes in this will have the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is, and put it there. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's a really good thing. What I want to see happen, Ross, the work that you and I have been doing over the last few years, is to continue to make known the Moses Scroll, because what the Moses Scroll, as you well know, what it has that the other 10 commandments copies doesn't have is, one, it has 10 commandments instead of 9. The 10th commandment being represented in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 17, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. And 2, the fact that there is an incentive structure to keep them, as it says in the Moses Scroll, that it may go well with you. As it says in Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 21, is that it may go well with you, that it may be well upon the land in which you. So what we would love, I love the idea of this, is telling students, hey, you know what? All of this time it has been said that if you keep this, it will please God. You'll be doing the right thing. You'll be doing the good thing. You'll be seen as righteous, and that'll pay off in the life to come, and so on and so forth. And there's a bunch of theology that goes along with that. And there are institutions to conform to that will help you with that theology. Or there's an incentive structure here that says, that God says, if you will do these 10 things, then I will, I will bless you in these ways, and it will just go well with you in these particular areas. We see, even though that has not been so clear in religion past, we still see the benefit of countries and societies that uphold the 10 words. We can observe that and say, well, you know what? Society functioned much better when we upheld, and as it says in the Moses Scroll, and I think as it says in Deuteronomy as well, those who not confirm, but establish. Establish is the word. Blessed is the one who established all of these words. Societies and systems of government and so on and so forth that uphold and establish these words, there's clearly observable blessings.
Okay, let me jump in. I want to ask you this. Is it your opinion that our not so long in office Governor Landry, do you think that he in any way, this is just a question from one friend to another, do you think in any way he's done, I think you would say he's done a good thing by signing off on this, as those 30 representatives and 2 senators who sponsored and wrote this bill, but has he brought blessing in some way, or positioned himself and or the state of Louisiana for potential blessing in any way?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really?
The answer is absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because it doesn't say you'll be blessed if you display this. It does say, by the way, Ross, write them on the doorposts of your houses, write them on your gates, right?
And in your schools.
Clearly, I know there's I talk about it on the way and when you lie down and when you get up and so on and so forth. There's clearly a directive to do that. Why? Because it makes it known, and it does have an influential power. What he has done by making it known and displaying it on potentially on the walls of the classroom is that he's creating awareness, Ross. And we know that awareness makes people think, and without doubt, there are going to be children that say, you know what, I'm going to be more mindful of this. I'm going to try and do this, and I think that is going to have positive repercussions, at least as far as the Moses Scroll claims. That's going to have positive repercussions in society and upon the lives of those that keep it.
I think also, and I know that different people have different views on this, but I mean, if you look at, if it's interesting, I'm thinking of 2 things. One of the things that I saw is that one of the opponents to this idea, and the person that I read, this writer, was not really an anti-religious. I've been a little bit light in this program to put everybody in a category. Different people are in different places. This particular writer was one who is a practicing religious person, And there is a view, I want to make sure our viewers catch this. There is a view that some people hold that say, for all the good that might come from that, I want my child to go to school and learn to add and subtract and do math and do science and do English and learn literature and learn history. Bear with me. I know that this could classify as history, but I don't want any smell, any scent of religion. I want that to be left alone. I don't want prayer in school. I don't want this. I don't, And here's the reason. What this writer was saying is because of this particular writer's belief system. He said, I don't want my children, I don't want the school to teach their version of religion, whatever that is, their version of the text of the Bible, whatever that is, because that's my job. And if I allow it, if it's something that I agree with, that I like, that I give a thumbs up to, what's going to happen when it's something that I don't like? For instance, I brought up, what if in Dearborn, Michigan, I think in Dearborn, Michigan, they probably do have the 5 pillars of Islam in public schools. I don't know that. But it's likely that it could, and they could say, look, this is what we want in our public schools, and if little Susie is a good little Baptist girl, she's just going to learn something about the history of Islam. I'm sorry. So anyway, I guess
a couple of
one final point on that is,
go ahead.
I don't know in a public school. Now, parochial school is something different, but there is an argument for leave all religious text, all religious tenets, anything to do with the faith of whatever it is, out of the public school. Teach the kids how to add and subtract. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, the 3 Abrahamic faiths, primary Abrahamic faiths, so Islam, Judaism, Christianity, all venerate the 10 words from one degree to another. So that in itself shouldn't be a problem. Obviously, there are other religious expressions, but suck it up.
Good point.
The other thing is that, and people want to forget, like these kind of people want to forget the religious origins and expression of the evolution of the United States.
Yeah.
It didn't happen in a vacuum. It did actually happen in the context of a religious expression. Again, suck it up. That's just what it is. The other thing is that they are right, nevertheless, that it is the role of the parents to, as we just mentioned, to talk about it when you rise, to talk about it along the way, to to have it on the doorpost of your house and so on and so forth. But clearly, this is not what's being done when the 10 Commandments is concerned. And if it is, it's by very few households. As parents, we're failing on that front because we don't understand the nature of the 10 words. We don't understand how important they are. We don't understand that there's at least as the Moses Scroll puts it, there is a divine connection of blessing to the observation of those 10 words.
Yeah.
I think if we really understood that, then not only would it be, in our homes and in our classrooms, but we would be talking about it all the time, and there would be a heightened sense of observation of these 10 things. So what I think is going to happen is if this passes, yes, you'll see a bunch of the flying spaghetti monster religion will come out and say, well, we've got a code of conduct as well that we'd like to see on the wall. And the Satanists will come out of the woodwork and say, well, we've got an incentive, we've got 10 observations that we'd like to put on the wall, and this and that and this and that. And what you're going to have is a whole wall on every single classroom of everybody's creed. Well, you could do that.
Yeah.
Sure. Again, it doesn't infringe on the individual's free speech, and if they want to stand there for a couple of hours and take it all in, and then choose from that what they might glean from it, well and good. But it does take away the history of the United States. It takes away the religious context, historical context of the United States. People need to realize where they came from, and they need to realize going back. The great benefit that the 10 Commandments has had on society and law. People have to have a backbone like Landry seems to have and say, no, this is where we came from. And this has value. Not only does it have value in people's lives, but it has value historically as well. We need to acknowledge this is where we came from, and the dictates of Satanism or the the observations of whatever religion or this or that, it has nothing to do with our history.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong on our walls. And I think that's where they need to stand.
Hey, that's some good stuff. And I tell you, a lot of this is going to make a lot more sense in the coming days and weeks. And I don't know where this is going. I do know that the ACLU, the people who are against any organized religion, whatever those groups are called, they are all coming with I don't want to say it the wrong way, but they are loaded for bear, as we would say, because they cannot stand this, and they're going to try everything in their power to keep it out of the schools, out of the minds of our children. Again, drag queen story hour might be a go, but not religion.
Yep.
But listen,
you can have it. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was just going to say, this is a topic that we're going to come back to, Jono. I guarantee you it's not over. I'm going to promise you and the viewers that I'm going to make an attempt to get with our Senator Valerie Hodges, who was part of the one that I know for sure that I know. And who knows, I might even write the governor and send him a copy of the book. But we'll see how it shakes out. And I think it's interesting. And let me tell you one thing that is promising. This story put the 10 words back in the news. It is on every news network in the U.S., all over the internet. It's trending. Yep. So maybe, some would disagree with this, but maybe it's something is stirring in the world, and I hope it is. We're going. Go ahead. I was just.
It has to be. I was just saying, people should get behind Landry. They should absolutely get behind him. Find ways to support this bill and to encourage him in what he's doing. I think it's an excellent thing. And what you're going to see, it wouldn't surprise me, and I think this is where you're going, is that eventually, like I said, people need to remind themselves that public schools have had all manner of ridiculous indoctrination crammed down upon the kids. Why, then, should this be opposed? This is something that is historical. It is something that is common sense. It is something that's going to bless the people in observing it. People need to keep that in mind. It's just the reality of the situation. They should get behind Landry, absolutely. And I think what you're going to see is states eventually, Ross, that say, we adamantly do not want anything, particularly of the Judeo-Christian religion. We don't want anything like that. We reject it. What we want is these particular ideologies that we want to brainwash our kids with. We're going to do that. Then you're going to have states like hopefully Louisiana that say, well, you know what, we want the kids to be well aware of the 10 Commandments and to understand them and hopefully implement them in their lives. And you're going to see states like that, and they're going to pull apart. I can really see this happening in the future, and we're going to be able to watch in real time how those states perform. Ross, go ahead.
I am interested because of conversations that you and I have had both on our show and in private, where it's sort of a put it to the test. If the 10 words are as the Decalogue, if the Decalogue is truly divinely imparted, people can argue which version. Everyone knows our stand on this, but I think if this Decalogue, we've even had the conversation, even if Exodus and Deuteronomy don't agree, those countries, those nations, those states who embrace this, at least in some form of recognition, I think that quite possibly, let's see, does it bring about something good in the end? Maybe the state of Louisiana will benefit from this in ways that are yet unseen, unknown, unheard of. We'll have to see.
And the great thing about that is that we have in history a massive sample size. We have a huge sample size in history to be able to look at countries by which the 10 words has been foundational and say, you know what, did a lot better than countries that didn't. We have that. In the near future, what we're going to have is people's subjective accounts saying, well, you know what, I started implementing this and that, and and then this happened to me and that happened. Now, people's individual accounts are subjective, that's fine, but a large sample size over time is very, very telling. So that's right.
All right, man, listen up. Let's go to the Yakad and let's meet with our supporters, which we appreciate very much.
Really interesting conversation now.
And that's right. We're going to have some pros, some cons. There are people who don't listen. I know you're not going to believe this. There are people who think this is a bad idea, Jono. There are people.
We're going to have that discussion.
That's right. But that's right. And they get to come in and tell us what they think. I'll see you there in about 10 minutes.
Good stuff.
And everyone else, I'll see you next week. Jono,
well, tell everyone how they can join the Yakad. Come on, because they can join in the conversation next week.
They can join the Yakad through supporting our efforts here. They can join our YouTube channel. Very easy. You click join on the video you're watching. They can, at any level you choose, they can join the Patreon at any level, whatever fits your budget, or they can join our Discord server called Horev. Interesting and good name, by the way. And all of those are in the description of this video. You just go down and pick it out. You want to go to Patreon, click it. It's that easy, Jono.
Good stuff.
Hey,
we'll
man.
See you next week. All right, mate. Bye.
Bye.